Yes, sirree. It's a Friday morning in the Spice Isle, and this is he, George Grant. Welcome to today's edition of Gudday Grenada. Another week winding down here. Hope it hasn't been too bad a week for you. Honestly, can you sit back this weekend and say, hey, you know what? This past week, I did accomplish so and so, so and so. And guess what? Next week, gonna do a whole lot better. Right attitude, folks. Let's take a look at the rundown, see what we got cooking here this morning. Soca artists are going to be returning to a big motorcade. This is what? The 1200th motorcade this year? Man, we've been having motorcades galore in the Spice Isle. And one could only imagine that the one tomorrow to welcome back Mr. Killer is going to be massive. We'll tell you about that in just a wee bit. Today happens to be a big day, man, as far as elections are concerned. One of probably the biggest one is going to be with the Public Workers Union, where you have Mr. Brian Grimes, their public relations officer, putting up a challenge against the current president, Rachel Roberts. Well, what are these two folks campaigning on? We'll let you know that in just a wee bit. We also have, yes, what would we do without it? Come on, the National Report. Yeah, the National Report comes your way. And then, he has not been with us for a couple of weeks, but I spoke to him as recently as last night. Yeah, man. He's back in town. Scully! Mr. Brian Pitt, saddled up, ready to go. I expect that sometime in the next 10 minutes or so, we will see his face showing up on this massive Mac monitor here on my right. And we'll have him with you at about the bottom of the hour. Anyhow, let's get down to brass tacks, my dear friends. Actually, let me say good morning to a couple of people out there on Facebook. Peter is in Long Island this morning. He's saying good morning. Kipling is in the Big Apple. He's sending his blessings. And TF is also there saying, are you guys all retired, especially you, TF? Never missing a program on a weekday morning. Wow, good to see you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate your company. Now, celebration time, pilgrims. The government of Grenada is planning a grand motorcade and celebration event on Saturday, that's tomorrow, in honor of the artists returning from successful performances in the International Soca Monarch competition in Trinidad and Tobago. The artists will be welcomed by government officials in a brief ceremony at the Maurice Bishop International Airport. This will be immediately followed by a grand motorcade starting at the airport, and they're going to make stops in the 4 parishes which are home to the artistes. Okay? Now, in St. David, stops will be made at the police station, Lieutenant, and Crochet. In St. Andrew, the motorcade will stop in Grenville, Paradise Junction, and Tivoli. Okay? On the western side of the island, the first stop will be at Hero Square in St. Mark, followed by 2 stops in St. John, the first of which will be on the Lance in Guave. Okay? The motorcade culminates at the Cuthbert Peters Park and will be followed by a brief ceremony featuring remarks from the parliamentary representative for St. John, Honorable Alvin Dabrio, and the Minister for Youth Development, Honorable Kate Lewis. This will be followed by performances from all of the artists who participated in the International Soca Monarch last Friday night. Fet for Soul, pilgrims. Saturday's event is intended to recognize the outstanding performances by the local artists who have demonstrated at the regional level that they can compete against the very best, claiming 3 of the top 6 positions in that competition. Hollis, Mr. Killer, Map, won the International Soca Monarch with his hit, Run With It, while Hector, Mr. Legs, Thomas, and Javon Von John, I like that, Javon Von John, claimed 3rd spot in the power and groovy categories respectively. Okay? The duo, Dingan Little Natty Henry and Nylon Thunder Williams, as well as Mandela Lynx, Mr. McDonald, also delivered credible performances and helped to showcase the growth of the soca art form in Grenada. Now, let me get back, let me get back here to Facebook. Yeah. John says, good morning, Georgie boy and the gang from Dependency Dependency number 1. It looks like you have some good rain clouds heading your way. Yeah, it's not yet raining here, John, but I just a few minutes ago I was out there on the balcony. Yeah, it's kind of, the sun is peeking through, but it's kind of, I wouldn't be at all surprised. Margaret Francis is saying happy Friday. Lydia is saying good morning, Grenada and George. Anthony Howard, good morning, family. Margaret hey, Mags, I'm glad you brought this up. Mags is saying happy International Women's Day. Well, I beat you to it, girl, because last night I think I published a statement from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. I published that last night. So yes, happy Women's Day to all you young ladies out there. And so far this morning, I'm only seeing 2 of them, Lydia and Margaret. Where are the other ladies? Where are the other ladies? Anyhow, they're going to be here. Lincoln Roberts is saying, good day, brothers and sisters. Have a blessed day. And of course, he's sending his love to everyone. And T.F. Richard says, I have a funny way of thinking at times. Did these guys represent Grenada in Trinidad, or did they represent themselves? I ask this in light of their official capacity, like that of Kirani representing Grenada at the Olympics. Happy Women's Day to all the strong-minded women in this class and all other women. You know, TF, I can't help but wonder, I mean, where are they? Oh, hey, here comes another one. LMA Jackson is just saying good morning. But I was just going to say to you, TF, you know, maybe the reason why we haven't seen them show up here yet this morning, they may have started a celebration about 5:30 this morning, you know, and they're feeling kind of, don't know, but I said I bet they're going to be here. Lydia says, it's bright and sunny here in Canada, but cold. Yeah, nice way to celebrate International Women's Day. Anyhow, now, let's get to the Public Workers Union elections today. You know that Rachel Roberts and Brian Grimes are going at it. Well, I've had both of these people in here, okay? And I've given them both good airtime to vent the reasons why they feel their membership ought to be voting for them. Well, I have 2 little thingies here. This one's in my hand. This one's from Rachel. And here's what it says. She is Rachel Roberts. Vote Rachel Roberts for president. She is able, believable, connected, dependable. All for one and one for all. A dedicated and selfless leader with integrity. Now, here's what she pledges to do. Continue the legal process to secure a constitutional pension with 25% gratuity. Advocate for occupational safety and health in the workplace. Continue to lobby for regularization of contract and other workers. Facilitate the process for education, training, and development that protects and preserves workers' rights and freedoms. Safeguard and continue to negotiate to secure fringe benefits for workers, and engage and involve workers in building union power. Vote Rachel Roberts for president on March 8th. That's today. Rachel. Now, Mr. Grimes says, vote Brian Grimes for president. Now here's his mandate. We'll continue to produce our recently launched newsletter, PWU Outreach, to keep workers informed. We'll increase workplace visits to get feedback directly from workers. We'll take a more scientific and data-based approach to negotiations. And finally, we'll utilize my natural inclination of being a team player to optimize the talents of our executive. Those are the reasons why Mr. Grimes believes that the membership of the PWU should cast their vote for him. Okay, let me, LMA Jackson says International Women's Day. Yeah, LMA, we're talking about that. Check out the statement on the website there where you are from Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Ashton Fletcher says, a pleasant good morning to you, George, from Louisville, Kentucky. Here's to wishing you a pleasant day and a restful weekend. Boy, do I need a restful weekend. It's been a good week. Glennon Knights is saying, Happy International Women's Day to all women. I told you guys they were late getting here, but they are here. Okay, let's take a little break here now, and we're going to come back with the National Report.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Grenelec, energizing our Grenada.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
All right. Couple of things. First of all, just before I fire up the national report, there are a couple of comments here. First of all, Lydia James says, how come Grimes didn't say that he will continue to fight for pensions and gratuity for the workers? Good question. Inquiring minds want to know, right? Sharon Roberts is saying, good morning and happy IWD to all women, International Women's Day. And Kipling Francis says, Mr. Grimes reminds me of someone who entered politics in Grenada in 1984, a team player. We know the result. And Fitzroy says, good morning to all the women out there. Enjoy your day to the fullest. Okay. And even as I speak to you, there he is. But I tell you, he's so close to the camera this morning. I mean, I'm just seeing one massive face. Mr. Brian Pitt. He is getting all dollsed up, and he's going to be with us in just a wee bit. But first, here comes the national report.
First zonal sports meet staged, organizers say they were hoping for a higher level of participation. Stay with us, we'll have the details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Thursday, March 7th, I am Delroy Lozan. 42 events were run off on Thursday in the first zonal games held in preparation for the April 5th National Secondary School Games. Athletes from the Southern Zone were in friendly rivalry at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, which saw a good turnout of students to witness the games. While he was pleased with the turnout of the student body and the athletes who showed up ready for competition, Mr. Curlin Peters, acting coordinator for sports, says he is disappointed that more students were not allowed to compete.
I must say I'm disappointed. I must say it openly with some of the principals. You come here with your students and you sit on the stand and you tell the children not to compete. And the children come down and say, so the principal said not to compete. That is, to me, I don't know how to describe it. Because the same kids you need next year or the year before for intercall. You know, and that is disappointing because there's no benefit of sports to the whole nation building. We just have England and West Indies playing here. You know, we spend how much $millions of dollars preparing for lighting. We all of our athletes performing well at KFT, at other events. You and Jeremiah, Josh, they all performing well. And we thought the opportunity from here, as somebody as Johan, that outside the competing would not have been there.
Peters, who has been promoting sports in various disciplines for a number of years, says athletes should not be denied the opportunity to compete.
My thing, you could have come here and with the athletes and say you wish to compete. Because it's the same athletes we need for the future. So what happened to sports in Grenada? What happened to track and field? Next 3, 4, 5 years down the line. We have worked very hard, and I say we take over from person to person to make sure that we reach a level where we have, boasted of being having one of the best competition in the whole Caribbean. With the support, with the crowd, we were able to host an event that is viewed by 97 million households in our small country. So that shows our impact internationally.
The games were organized by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Sports. following the cancellation of intercol games by the Grenada Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. Chief Education Officer Mr. David Andrew says sports plays an integral part in the students' overall development.
Today's zonal meet is pretty important. As you're aware, physical education is now an integral part of the school's curriculum. It's even testable at CHC. It's a tremendously important multi-billion-dollar industry, and the Ministry of Education has a mandate to provide opportunities to see all of the areas of the curriculum grow, and this is one such.
Sports enthusiast and coach Lester Smith believes opportunities must be provided for students to reach their full potential.
The children want to play, just like in soccer, just like in cricket. If we can get the children to play more, then it's better for us. You know, we did so poorly in Carifta over the last 2 years. As I said, we only got 1 medal last year, right? We got 2 medals the year before from Holly Hazard in the 100 and 200, and she's not a homegrown, you know. So we need to spend more time to develop our athletes, and part of development is competition, right? Competition is good. So let's go. Let's run with it.
March 13th is the date set for the Western Zonal Games, which will be held at the Cuthbert Peters Park from 9 a.m. and will feature the MacDonald College, the Happy Hill Secondary, the St. John's Christian Secondary, the St. Mark's Secondary, the St. Rose Modern Secondary, and the Mount Rose SDA Comprehensive Secondary Schools. Representatives from one of the funding agency of the Mount Horn Child Development Center accompanied government officials on a tour of the facility on Wednesday. Construction of the facility is 60% complete. Rikisha St. Louis has the details.
The project, which has been funded by India UN Development Partnership Fund, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and the Government of Grenada, began 4 months ago in November, is the brainchild of Parliamentary Representative for the constituency of St. Andrew Northwest and Minister for Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment, Honorable Delma Thomas. The aim is to provide a safe haven for young children in the Mount Horn community and surrounding areas. On Wednesday, the minister, along with a UNICEF representative, visited the site, along with early childhood coordinators from the Ministries of Social Development and Education. According to Minister Thomas, the people of Mount Horn can soon look forward to a state-of-the-art facility to call their own.
This is very, very important for the people of Mount Horn. There are many children and many young mothers who would have gotten jobs or gotten training opportunities, but because they have young children and nowhere to put them, then that's a problem. So the fact that we have this new child development center, they now will be able to put their children in a safe home and go out to find a job or to find some of the training opportunities that is available that can help them to get a job in the future.
Early Childhood Development Specialist for UNICEF Eastern Caribbean Area, Shelly Ann Harper, says she's quite pleased with the progress of the project thus far.
UNICEF is very concerned about children having access to nurturing care, quality early stimulation in their early years, and of course a place where their safety and security is paramount. And so, this is the aim of what we expect to achieve with this work.
Minister Thomas noted, however, that while she's pleased with the progress of the project thus far, she's not certain that the previously set deadline will be met.
While I'm satisfied with the progress that has been made, I am not sure 100% that we will meet the target, the deadline that we had set before, since they are realizing that there are some more work to be done on the project, so it might take a couple months longer, but I am happy where we are thus far, and I see light at the end of the tunnel for the completion of the Child Development Center.
According to building contractor of the project, Jerry Hosford, the facility is approximately 60% complete. For the National Report, I'm Rikisha St. Louis.
You're watching the National Report. More news after the break.
This Saturday, 9th March at 1:30 p.m., the King touches down. The 2019 International Soca Monarch, Mr. Killer, returns home with the coveted crown.
I am tired and frustrated.
decade of war. And so every Grenadian is asked to assemble at the Maurice Bishop International Airport for this grand and historic motorcade, which starts at Point Selling through St. David's up the Eastern Corridor onto St. Patrick down the west side and into Wharf, Cuthbert Peters Park to be exact, for the grand welcome home celebration. And also on this motorcade, Mr. Legs, Vaughn, Little Natty and Thunder, and Mandela Links come out and show your appreciation. The International Soca Monarch Welcome Home Party, Mr. Killer.
Tell the Prime Minister, open the port and come in home.
The celebration continues.
Welcome back. 15 hotel personnel are now more equipped to satisfy and serve the clients following a 2-day customer service excellence training organized by the Grenada Tourism Authority. The training was held following government's decision in 2018 to establish and launch a small hotels program. The program, which is divided into 3 categories, loans, training and market support, is geared towards giving more visibility to small properties in Grenada. Communications Officer of the Grenada Tourism Authority, Ria Murray, stressed the importance of the training. She says within the hospitality industry, it is crucial to note that first impressions last.
It's very, very important to continue training in customer service excellence and also supervisory management, because we know that first impressions last, and customer service is really important. We want to be able to get our frontline personnel up to a point where their customer service is excellent, it's on point, guests feel comfortable, guests can communicate properly with them, and overall we just want our visitors and our locals as well to have wonderful, memorable experiences when they go to, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, a bar, you name it. So customer service excellence is really the name of the game.
Training facilitator Anya Braffett said customer service representatives must be consistent in their delivery. She says consistency must be incorporated into their efforts to market Grenada and improve customer service delivery.
While we are a lovely people, we are, you always hear people talk about how nice Grenadians are, how pleasant, how warm, but customer service has to be something on a consistent basis, and we have to appreciate that. And there are skills to help you deliver good customer service. While you maybe have good intent and want to be nice and want to be pleasant, but if you know how to do it, then you will deliver a better customer service to your client.
7 properties were represented at the training. Shadonna Matthew and Yolan Crosby are confident the training will improve their hotel's service delivery.
It helps me a lot in improving my communication skills, my work ethics, and much more. It taught me a lot about customer service. It's not just saying hi, good morning to a lot of guests, but it's the way how we greet them, the way how we approach them. The first impression is always a lasting one. And I want to say it was really helpful to me, and I'll go back to Secret Harbor Boutique Hotel Marina and share with my other staff so that we can make this team a better team.
Serving my guests with the most beautiful smile and sharing what I've learned here with my co-workers so that they too will serve our customers better, so that they be happy and enjoy our hotel and Grenada.
And finally in the news, the government of Grenada is planning a grand motorcade and celebration event on Saturday, March 9th, in honor of the artists returning from the successful performances at the International Soca Monarch in Trinidad and Tobago. The artists will be welcomed by government officials in a brief ceremony at the Maurice Bishop International Airport. This will be immediately followed by a grand motorcade starting at the airport that will make stops in the 4 parishes which are home to the artists. In St. David, stops will be made at the police station, Latande and Crowshoe. In St. Andrew, the motorcade will stop in Grenville, Paradise Junction and Tivoli. On the western side of the island, the first stop will be at the Heroes Square in St. Mark, followed by 2 stops in St. John, the first of which will be on the Lance in Guelph. The motorcade culminates at the Cuthbert Peters Park and will be followed by a brief ceremony featuring remarks from the parliamentary representative for St. John, the Honourable Alvin Dabrio, and Minister for Youth Development, the Honourable Kate Lewis. This will be followed by performances from all of the artists who participated in the International Soca Monarch last Friday. Saturday's event is intended to recognize the outstanding performances by the local artists who have demonstrated at the regional level that they can compete against the best of the best, claiming 3 of the top 6 spots in the competition. Hollis, Mr. Killer Map, won the International Soca Monarch with his hit Run With It, while Hector, Mr. Legs Thomas, and Javon Von John claimed 3rd spot in the power and groovy categories respectively. The duo Dingan Litonati Henry and Nilan Thunder Williams, as well as Mandela Lynx MacDonald, also delivered credible performances and helped to showcase the growth of the soca art form in Grenada. That story ends the national report for today, Thursday, 7th March 2019. Let's recap the headline. First zonal sports meet staged. Organizers say they were hoping for a higher level of participation. That's all for today in the National Report. On behalf of all who made this newscast possible, I'm Delroy Lozan, thanking you for joining us.
Alrighty, folks, that's going to take care of last night's edition of the National Report. Mr. Pitt is waiting with bated breath to say good morning to you folks. However, I couldn't help but notice a lot of comments this morning on the Facebook page having to do with yesterday's games. And this came as no surprise to me. I got to be honest with you. I got a tip-off last night. Last night I received a WhatsApp from a colleague explaining to me that the Emlyn Pair games at the National Stadium were a flop. I thought, flop? What do you mean? Apparently they had 39 events scheduled and only 20. You're talking, a little over 50%. Only 20 of those events came off. Apparently there were times when they were calling, on the PA system for athletes to come, compete. Nobody was showing up. So when I see the comments that I'm seeing here this morning, it doesn't really surprise me. However, Margaret says, higher level of participation, a new term for failure. Ha, 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 ha. So says Margaret. T.F. Richards says, that's the first slap in the face of the authorities. Poor turnout. Yes, the WhatsApp that I received last night did tell me that it was a very poor turnout. Margaret says, Mr. Peters, you could feed a horse. You could lead a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. So says Margaret. Where have I heard that before? Lydia James says, so all you really believe that would have been a success? Hell no. Emlyn Pair and them too bright. Lydia, Lydia, Lydia. Emmeline Lydia is spelled Emmalyn, not Emelin. Okay? Get it right, girl. Then John says, where did Mr. Peters hear that principals told the athletes not to compete? At least it sounds good, doesn't it, John? I mean, come on, you're surprised? Please. T.F. Richards says, why blame the principals alone? Margaret says, Lydia, the thing that is getting me is the arrogance of these people in thinking that they can force the kids to run. I mean, seriously. Huh? Peter Bishop says, I guess he's talking about the Emmeline Peer Games. What's wrong with Mr. Peters? Guess he's looking to be confirmed as sports coordinator? Pay the teachers their money and everything will be back to normal. Do not play with teachers. I hope the message is being received. TF says, these so-called officials must get their thoughts and mouths out of political mimicking and ego clashes. How many of them that are that love sports take time off to run programs to enhance the same youths that they're all of a sudden so passionate about? Good point. Good point. I'm sure Mr. Pitt will have something to say about that in just a wee bit. Fitzroy Adams says, Mr. Peters, with due respect, I don't believe you one bit. I expected a comment like that from you. T.F. Richards says, well, we'll forget about that one because I think that had to do with another story. Nixon Mitchell says, news reports. Margaret says, how come the fiscal space allows for a motorcade for Soca artists, but it doesn't allow for the general hospital and health care? Ha ha. Okay. T.F. Richards says, that's the correct name, the Emmeline Peer Games. Yes, you're correct. Lincoln Roberts says, they are all using the children, the principals, teachers, and government. How sad. Why not have the sporting events as usual, although there are unsolved differences with the government and teachers? The children should not be deprived the opportunity of having their annual sports meet. Shame on the so-called adults. Do you think that was the best way? May God help us. And Thaddeus Bonaparte is saying good morning from New Jersey. And I am going to say good morning to Mr. Brian Pitt right now. Good morning, Mr. Pitt.
Good morning, George. How are you this morning?
I am fine, sir, and I am so admiring your patience. You have been sitting there for about 20 minutes with a smile on your face. Thank you very much, sir. Brian, we missed you for a couple of weeks. What happened, man? Brian?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now. I said we missed you for a couple of weeks. What happened?
Well, I want to remind myself how cold North America was. And why I live in Grenada.
Nice to be back, I bet.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Lovely to be back.
Now, I'm assuming that while you were gone, you weren't sitting on your thumbs. You were obviously taking a look at things here and planning on what you're going to bung away on this morning.
George, we're not going to bung away on anything. But first of all, you know, these games that are now taking place, it's unfortunate, George, that ministers of government, maybe the cabinet, maybe the prime minister, choose confrontation rather than negotiations. And this, I believe, is mistake number 2, as in my counting anyway. You take away the people's salary, and now you try to force games, sports meetings, and you're blaming the teachers, and you're trying to put the students against the teachers, and those things don't normally work. And I would suggest the government resolve this issue as quickly as possible. Stop this charade. Get back to the bargaining table. Pay the teachers what they've earned, and let's get this thing over with. Because George, if we don't get over this thing soon, one trigger could cause some problems in Grenada. But George, the substantive point I want to talk about this morning, and it would be good to have a conversation with you on this subject. In the last few weeks, I note that a group of people, I call them the vocal majority, the vocal minority, sorry. The vocal minority is attempting to celebrate 40 years of the revolution. The vocal minority, George, is trying to celebrate 40 years of the revolution. And I'm trying to figure out a way to start this conversation this morning, George.
Take your time. Just take your time.
Every year at this time, George, I ask myself a couple of questions. To ask of people who were members or supporters of the Revolutionary Military Council, the RMC. Do we know what that is? Yeah. The Revolutionary Military Council was in charge of Grenada between the 19th and the 25th of October, 1983. And I ask myself, or ask those people whenever I get to talk to them, two questions. Where were you and what were you doing between October the 19th and October the 25th? Bear with me, George. You will soon find out where I'm going with this thing. Because at the time, after March the 25th, there were two sets of people in Grenada. One set of people were the RMC, and they were the ones that went on radio and called a curfew. A curfew, George, and that curfew said that if we were to move from our houses, we'd be shot on sight. I stand corrected on that, George. And the other set of people was those people who were under house arrest. Yes, George? Mm-hmm. And I suspect that over 90% of the people of Grenada was under house arrest, if not more. So those two sets of people, one people holding the gun and another set of people under house arrest. I was under house arrest with 4 kids in my house. And I was talking to a young person recently, and they referred to the activities of October the 25th, 1983 as an invasion. George, there's my substantive point here. Those people who called the curfew considered this an invasion. Those people who were under house arrest considered it an intervention, George. And I think that's very instructive. Now, I also note that there are a lot of people who are not in Grenada under house arrest who were sympathizers with the revolution, who called it an invasion. And there are a lot of young people now who refer to the period and the events as an invasion. Now that tells me that the propaganda of that majority, that vocal minority is working. And we need to have a conversation about, number one, whether it's an invasion or an intervention. And it bothers me, George, that there are a lot of people, well, some people in Grenada continue to want to celebrate the legacy of the revolution. And I'm going to steal this from an article that William Joseph penned recently. I don't believe that it's in the media as yet, but I hope that William will publish it soon. They want to celebrate the legacy of the revolution without talking about the footprint of the revolution. And William very thoughtfully listed the legacies of the revolution, which included the NIS, etc., etc. And he also listed the footprint of the revolution, including the assassination of the Prime Minister on the 19th of October. And George, that is bothering me. Because all these people who are now getting together to celebrate 40 years should also be talking about the footprint, should also be talking about the negative things about the revolution. And they're not. And I wonder why. Is it that they have something to hide? Is it that they're still living in the past? And in their past, it would be the period when they had power. Now, I want us to note that a lot of the people who are now having that conversation would have been young men in those days, some of them teenagers, some of them early 20s. And the power formed their character, so that some of them are still living the power. I know, George, I also note that a lot of the people who were part of that RMC crowd now find safe sanction and harboring in the law. They're either lawyers or they associate themselves with the law. They find cover in the law, while a lot of unanswered questions remain. Every now and then I have a conversation with young people who are involved with the militia and the army, who are still looking for answers, George, of those people who were in charge. And as a matter of fact, a lot of those people are very angry that they're still not, as of today, getting answers. George, for those of us who were under house arrest, who consider this the activities of the October 1983 an intervention, will celebrate 40 years in 2023. Because that's when we believe our lives were saved. George, I would like a conversation with you. What do you think of my discourses?
You know something, Brian? You've got my mind, my brain working overtime here, because I heard you mention Willie Joseph, and having listened to what you were just saying, I just thought as I sat here, why don't I offer some airtime to get this dialogue going? Brian, are you available on Sunday morning to come in here? And maybe I could also, not maybe, I would definitely try to rope Mr. Joseph in. Would you be willing to come and sit with him? And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. I have been asked by the organizing committee of this celebration.
I suspect as much. They're looking for as many platforms as possible, George, to promote their activities.
You're too fast. They're going to be coming in here at 9:45 on Sunday morning. Is that the 10th? Yes, I think it's the 10th. Yes. So I would be delighted after these folks leave. And hey, maybe they don't even have to leave. If you and Willie decide to come and sit in here, I would also invite them to join in the conversation. Let me have your thoughts, Mr. Pitt. And I'm doing this in the presence of my distinguished audience out there right now.
George, it's a wonderful idea. I think every opportunity those of us who are under house arrest have to have a conversation about this footprint of the revolution, which I consider, those were horrifying days, you know, George, between the 19th and the 25th, for those of us who are under house arrest. We wondered when this thing would end. We wondered how we would get food for our children, those of us who had children to care for. And we took this threat about kill at sight very seriously. So it is a conversation that we need to have. Now, I must note at this point, George, as part of the legacy of the revolution is this thing called the NIS. I think the NIS is doing a wonderful job. But I believe it was Mr. Lane who penned an article suggesting that one of the failures of the setting up of the NIS was how it dealt with the pension for public servants. So during that period of time, George, between 1979 and 1983, you had a bunch of young men who believed they know it all and did things and did not encourage dialogue. If you had anything to say, you'd probably end up in the Richmond Hill prison with a constitution that was suspended and no rights. Some of the same rights that some of these people who are promoting the revolution are calling for under the law that some of them do represent right now. You know? So yes, I would be glad, George, to come and have a conversation, because I think this article that William penned, and I don't know when he's going to make it public, but I would like most people to have a read. It would be
What's the article?
The heading of the article is The Revolution, Legacy, and Footprints.
Listen, he's already published that. It's up on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website.
Is it?
Yeah, man.
Okay, well, if he already published it, George, read it and read it again and again and again. Those of you who have not read it yet, go have a read. And I think he's making some very interesting points. Not taking any sides, just asking people to please consider that the revolution left a footprint.
All right, and by the way, just in case you're probably thinking very quietly, George really wiggled his way out of my question a little while ago. I just want to say this, Brian. I was not here during the Revo, okay? I was very, very far removed from all of this. And so I'm not one of those people who like to talk a lot about things without really knowing what he's talking about. When I speak, and that's the reason why people believe me when I speak, because I speak about stuff that I understand. So I have heard some fabulous things about the revolution. You just mentioned one of them, NIS, and there are more. But Brian, I've also heard some horrendous stories that
human rights violations
that bring me to my knees.
Human rights violations. Let me read from Williams' article. Human rights violations, the taking of life and property, censorship, house arrests, detentions, heavy manners, the ruthless gun standard of political control. We control the politics with a gun in the hands of some young people. And I can go on, and this one I find very interesting. The evolution of ideology over people. The evolution, George, of ideology over people. And in a different form that is happening right now, that the government believes certain things and they're making certain decisions, irrespective of how the people feel. This whole idea of gross national product, I always have a laugh at this, that the country is growing at 5% or 4%, when the people don't recognize any of that growth. This is growth without the people. When are we going to start thinking about the people, George?
Brian, there's a comment here from Margaret on Facebook. She says, I supported the revolution, and yes, there were good and bad things about it, which we should talk about. But it is also a human tendency to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. The same happened with Gary. Supporters praise him and forget that he also committed devious crimes against opponents. But at the end of the day, an open and honest conversation is needed. Brian, what's the...
My question to Margaret quickly here, George, is whether or not she considered the events of October 25th, an intervention or an invasion.
Why don't we rope her in on Sunday? Huh?
Okay, no problem.
Margs, you're roped in. You can come hollering, kicking, screaming. You're in on Sunday. Okay. There are a couple other comments while you were speaking, Brian. T.F. Richard says, is the vocal minorities being led by our goodly Dr. M? Dr. M? I'm not saying anything. Benedict Cador says, there are always two sets of people in Grenada. 90%? Just asking. That's in response to something you said earlier on. Margaret says, no correction there, Brian. Those were the words from General Hudson Corfu Austin. I guess you know what she's talking about.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Brian, boy, let me tell you, it was worth the wait. 2 weeks I ain't see you, and now you come back here and you hog the whole thing.
I'm here for a while, George, so you can depend on me on Friday mornings.
Well, that's music to our ears. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to kick in here before we pull the plug?
No, George, just a quick point here about the media. I am a little disappointed in our journalists and our practitioners. You know, when they go to press conferences and don't ask the questions, it seems to me that a lot of them are not prepared. For example, recently I heard the Prime Minister talking about Petrocaribe, and that as far as he's concerned, I stand corrected here, that Petrocaribe is null and void right now because Venezuela is in so much problems, or it doesn't function, or whatever he said. Words to the effect that, you know, we don't owe all that money, but we must owe Venezuela. We have been in this agreement for a while, so whether or not whoever is in power in Venezuela, we owe them money. How much we owe them? How much have we been paying? Are questions that I believe people of Grenada would like to know, and maybe at some point in time the government should address it. Thank you, George.
Don't go yet. Don't go yet. Lincoln Roberts is out there in Florida, and he is saying here the USA called it a rescue mission. But we all know the lies that they were spreading about Cuba and the military base. We all wanted to be freed from house arrest, and we needed the criminals arrested. This conversation is getting me upset. Sorry. Respond, Brian. You started it.
Well, this conversation is getting me upset, has been for the last 40 years, you know, Judge, because maybe Lincoln knows something that we all should know. And he doesn't answer the question, was it an intervention or an invasion? Whether it was a rescue mission or not, we consider those people who are under house arrest, George, considered it an intervention. I do. I considered it an intervention.
Okay. Margaret says, Brian, to your question, I consider it an invasion. But considering the options, it was the least of the evils. That's it?
That's typical. Have a nice day,
yes. Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much. As always, boy, good to see you. And we'll see you. Let me see now. Let's make it 10:30 on Sunday morning.
Yeah, just send me a reminder, Joe. Just send me an email reminder.
Brian, today is, from
10:30 Sunday morning.
Yeah. Hold on. TF says, Mr. Pitt, our PM does not answer financial questions. Okay.
Is he the Minister of Finance?
10:30. I'm going to send you a thing for 10:30 on Sunday morning. Yeah. 10:30 to 12 o'clock on Sunday. I'm giving you guys a full hour and a half.
Have a good day, George.
Okay, my dear friend. Thanks a lot, Ryan. Good to see you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okie doke, folks. Mr. Brian Pitt there. And it's going to bring us almost to the end of today's edition of Gudday Grenada. I do wish, though, that you'd hang on for just a second. We'll come back after this break with our parting inspirational word. Hang in there. All right. All right, folks, it's 1 minute after 10 o'clock, just before the parting word. I've already read a comment from you where Margaret says, Brian, to your question, I consider it an invasion, but considering the options, it was the least of the evils. Now, Lincoln Roberts also says here it was a necessary invasion. Veronica Sandy is wishing everybody a happy weekend, and Benedict Cador seems to have the final word here so far. He says, the events of October were horrible, but do not represent the entire revolutionary period. Benedict, that's the point I'm trying to make. I have heard some horrid things about the revolution. To be honest with you, Benedict, I have heard some wonderful things about the revolution. And there are people to this day who still maintain that if certain aspects of the revolution were still around, we would be in a much better place than we are today. That's what I'm hearing on the street. Who ain't like it. But I have to admit, I have to share with you what I'm hearing on the street. And that's it. Now, that's it. Okay, so that's it for Facebook. Now, parting word comes to you from Isaiah 43, verses 1 and 2. But now, this is what the Lord says. He who created you, Jacob, he who formed you, Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Oh God, isn't that encouraging? Huh? Isaiah 43, 1 to 2. Benedict here agrees with what I said. Ditto. And Veronica Sandy, I'm assuming she's responding to the passage I just read. Folks, you know the truth. You know the truth. You have been set free. Georgie Porgy is going to say thanks a lot for joining me on this Friday morning. And as you heard, well, I don't have to tell you why you should be joining us on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock for the next edition of Sundays with George Grant. Until such time, may the good Lord bless and keep you. Bye-bye.